Hello, everyone. It's Sandy. And before I get started, because I keep forgetting this, let me tell you that next Saturday, I'm going to be doing a live stream right here on this channel. And I'm going to tell you right now that I suck at live streams in terms of the tech and setting them up, because a lot of times they just end up being like nothing clicks, nothing goes through. So if for some reason the scheduled live stream that you can go and RSVP for on my channel right now, if for some reason that does not actually work, do me a favor and refresh my page, because I will start a new one if the original one doesn't work. So don't get mad at me. It's just gremlins. Okay, now let's get started on what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be painting this little barn in my sketchbook. This is my 365-day sketchbook. And I thought I'd show you something that happens at the end so that you'll stick around for it. I had some paint leakage. And so if you have also had paint leakage in the past, I will show you exactly how I fixed that. So let's get started painting, shall we? So let's start by looking at the photo reference. This one is by Roger Starnes Sr. Found this one at Unsplash. And the link is in the doobly-doo if you want to go get this photo and paint it yourself. There were a lot of things I liked about it. I liked the old barn. I liked the big tree. I liked the light hitting the top of the road and the tree itself. And it's got several layers of trees in it. So I'm going to be talking about a lot of different stuff. This is not necessarily an easy painting, but hopefully this will at least get you in tune with what the process might be for tackling a picture like this. Now, fortunately, this one has no perspective in it. If you don't draw anything in perspective and you can't make a building look like it's standing up straight when it's in perspective, then look for barns like this. You're just getting a side view and everything's kind of flat and straight. I'm going to be starting on Sandy Draws, a new series on perspective. So, you can follow along over there to catch that. But for now, I just thought, let's just do something that's going to be pretty straightforward and easy. I'm not sketching in every detail. Some people do that. I don't find that that's very helpful. I just want the big shapes. So the big barn shapes, the little road down there, the trunk of the tree, and then I don't sketch out anything in the tree itself. And you'll see why, because my technique allows me to just kind of be very loose with it. Remember last week I talked about being loose, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I have a different kind of loose than I was trying in that painting. So this is more of what I do. So I threw in some sky color, even though I don't see any sky color here. It's blown out in the photo. I just wanted a little bit of sky there so that the other things in the painting will show up nice and bright. So I'm dropping a few brush strokes of the Cobalt Teal Blue into the tree portion so that if I end up smartly leaving any of that showing, then I'll get to see some sky through it. And then I mixed up a gray color using French Ultramarine blue and a transparent red oxide, kind of a burnt sienna kind of color, to make a gray. And then I decided I would, do something a little daring, which I don't always do, which is mixing a green to put into those grasses right away while this is still wet. So some of this is going to travel down into the gray. And this is the places where I like to get loose. I like to let the colors touch each other. I like to paint wet in wet or wet next to wet and let some of that serendipity happen. So next I wanted to put some color in the trees in the background so that I can get some areas where I'm going to get a really soft edge to the green where it touches that blue sky. And I'll be able to have a little bit of soft edges potentially. And just to get some color in there. Right here at the beginning. I like when my first wash kind of touches each other, and I'm trying to basically cover everything that I don't want to be the white of the paper in some way or other. And I don't worry too much about, some of the greens going into where the tree trunk's going to be. It's going to get darker, not worried about that. And then I switched over to the gray color and a smaller brush so I could get a little more control with the barn. The barn here has a little opening in it to the other side. You can kind of see that you can see through to the other building. So I'm going to paint through all of this, leaving some area so that the sky portion in those vertical slats will show through. And not all of the things that I plan in this stage of a painting are things that will actually still be there when I'm done because, the paint does what it does. But I wanted to at least give myself the option to have things like that little peek through. I could have put some blue in there, but it wouldn't have stood out very much because I'm going to have those slats in there from the barn and didn't want to stress out about that too much. And then I decided I would try putting in a little bit of a light wash of the brown just to get something in there in the tree. And you can kind of see that I've left a highlight along the ground so that the light can hit that. And you can tell that it's pouring in from that left-hand side. I'm going to leave some light on several portions of the tree, especially on the left side, a little bit on the tip of the roof. So next up is trying to put in, once this is all dry, trying to put in the trees in the distance. There's just a little tiny bit of trees back there. And I'm going to let this sit and dry for a minute, and then I'll do something else to it because I want that top edge to be soft, but the paper is dry. So how do you get it to be soft? I'll show you. And I'm mixing color here. I'm mixing it right with the Cobalt Teal blue. I kind of leave my colors in there, let a little of the blue mix in with anything else if it wants to. What the heck? And then I'm going to start painting in the tree that's behind here. And I'm using a really light mix, meaning a lot of water in it, so that this is going to fade back and be out in the distance. The tree in the foreground, I'm going to make it much darker so it shows up better. Put a little brown in that tree as well in the background. I mixed up some yellow into my green so I could get a little different color in this kind of intermediary tree, and threw a little of that yellow-green into the big tree in the back as well. And then I remembered that I was supposed to fix that other tree in the background in the distance. And I just took one swipe with a baby wipe and then just dropped in a little of that yellow-green color. Did it unevenly. I just kind of want it to be a mess, a little mush back there, but it's going to give me a lot softer edge to it. Next up, I added the other green mixes were with Sap Green, and then this I added a little bit of Hooker's Green to it as well. And that's going to give me a different color for the big tree. And there are some people who stress out over finding the exact green for the exact tree. And you know what? Unless you're sitting here watching this video with me and knowing what kind of tree it is and what kind of color it is, you would have no idea whether I got it right or not. So don't drive yourself bananas trying to figure out how to mix the perfect green. I have a couple greens in my palette. I have Jadeite, I have Sap Green, and I have Hooker's Green. Any one of those colors I can mix with some blue. I can mix it with some Paynes blue gray. I can mix it with some brown, either of my yellows. I can make all different kinds of greens, just starting from the base of any of those particular green colors. And I just want the trees to feel different from each other. I do have a whole class on doing trees and treescapes, and my recommendation is in those, the first class is trees just by themselves. So you get to paint one tree at a time. And then after you complete that class, then you take the second class, which is treescapes, where trees merge into each other. This has some of that trees merging into each other stuff going on. So if this is something that you're like, I need to just spend more time learning that, I'll put links in the doobly-doo to those classes, and I've put them on sale for this weekend only. So you can get a nice discount on those tree classes if that is of interest, because it's my birthday month and I've been doing all kinds of fun sales and that sort of thing, as well as some freebie stuff. So next up is putting some darks into this tree while it's still wet. So I've mixed up thicker paint with the colors that I already had in it. I added a little bit of Paynes blue gray to it, but it's mostly just the greens. letting those kind of blend into the black or blend into the wet paint so that I get some soft edges. I'm going to add another layer to it, so no worries about trying to get all that detail in quite yet. I mixed up a thinner wash of the gray color. So again, it's French ultramarine blue with brown, and those two colors neutralize each other, so you can push them toward a gray by adding more blue to it, or keep it more of a brown by adding more brown to it. And I'm going to put a line of that underneath the roof because there's a shadow underneath of the roof. I'm going to try to carry it a little bit up into the trees. You can just barely see that building continues up there. And then I'll do the same thing underneath of the second portion of the roof. There's a little bit of tree that kind of sticks out in front of it. That tree is actually in front of the barn. I was originally thinking of it as being behind the barn, but I decided not to pull it in front of the barn eventually, just because I wanted to keep this painting much simpler. So I'm moving trees around. I've often kind of wondered if this is what God feels like when he, plants trees wherever he feels like planting trees. So as painters, we can just pick up a tree and move it somewhere else in our landscape if it fits better there. So you can see the thicker mixture of the dark color is going to get me more value in it, more contrast. So I'm going to start adding in all the slats and everything in the barn. And I'm going to let the building in the back kind of show through. You're going to see that because you'll be able to see the difference in the gray that I painted in there earlier. And then just painting all these slats. Don't get a ruler out. Now, I shouldn't say don't get a ruler out. You can, if you're worried that, your brush if you always end up doing something where it kind of slides off to one side or the other, often that's because when we're sitting at a desk and painting, we don't have our painting vertical in front of us. Then we can often get things a little bit crooked overall, like the whole drawing looks like it's gone crooked because we're looking at it at an angle. So regularly check your painting to make sure that you're painting straight, kind of horizontally and that sort of thing. I started putting my barn opening up there a little bit too high, but now is when I can start using that dark color. And this time it's got some Paynes blue gray in it. So I keep getting it darker and darker as we go with this, but it's going to give me the opportunity to start creating those darks in between that lighter, brighter tree and the barn itself, just pushing that back in physical space. So it just will get continually darker. I'm using a really light wash of this with much more water in it to make the slats in the building. And this is why I didn't draw them in, because now my brush is free to do whatever it wants with all those lines. And I don't have to stress out about, did I do it right? Did I trace along those lines? All I need is for it to not be kittywampus crooked, and it's still going to work. So I can add details elsewhere in all the little farm implements and everything here. But notice that the lines that I've got going here are on the light side. They're not really rich dark black because watercolor dries about 30% lighter than it goes on. So all of your color is always going to get lighter. So you can either plan that in advance and just tell yourself, I'm going to be adding more value in another pass, which is what I'm going to do. Or you can start by putting heavier washes in earlier. I find it's a little safer for me to use the former rather than the latter of the techniques by just saving it for a later wash, because then I can just continually build it up, and I'm not committed to that real dark if I'm not quite ready for it, because I know sometimes it can feel a little bit scary. So the inlaid liner brush, again, is doing a lot of the work here in keeping me loose. This is a really small painting, and a lot of people would just use their teeny tiny brushes for a small painting. But I was told by one of my mentors once that the best way you can help yourself to get a little looser with your painting is to use as big a brush as you can possibly get away with. And what he meant was whatever you're brave enough to use. And I've gotten to the point where in earlier parts of this, I was using bigger brushes than you might have thought would be okay for a little, I think this is about 5x7 for this painting. But I find that I end up making nice big brush strokes when I use bigger brushes. And I save the smaller brushes for later in the painting when I'm getting down to the smaller stuff. And I also try to hold back a little bit when I am making those teeny tiny brush strokes, because I can also then really wreck it. I might as well get out a pen and do it with an ink pen rather than doing it with watercolor. So I'm, constantly fighting myself to say, don't keep going. Don't keep adding every tiny bit of the bark in here. It's okay if I don't capture every tiny detail, because the tree detail is not the important part for me in this painting. The thing that I really liked is that nice big dark opening in the barn and seeing through those slats, seeing the darks that are behind the trees, and then some of the leaves on that big tree at the top. I really liked that portion. And then the lighting. One of the things that I do all the time is I paint the light. So I look for light that I can exaggerate. And even though you don't see a white highlight on the tip of the hillside and the road and the grass, I'm going to leave that as white because I'm overemphasizing it. I'm trying hard to capture that light in a way that, other people might just say, oh, well, I don't see any white there. The sky is the white thing. Well, I made the sky a value so that my whites could be really white. So moving on to kind of some of these last details now in this tree, I wanted to create some branches that are out here. And seeing some of those branches in there will help to make the tree look a little more delicate rather than just big blobs. But then I have some very thick paint that has brown in it. It's going to have some of the greens in it. It's also going to have some Paynes blue gray in it. And I'll keep adding to it and make it in a nice dark mixture so that I can get that tree in the front to pull forward, because I need it to be more, closer to the viewer than the other trees that are in it. It's closer to the viewer than the barn itself. That's what's going to give the scene dimension. It's going to give it the look of being three-dimensional so that one thing is in front of another thing, which is in front of another thing. And, that's really all I'm going for in a little sketch like this in this sketchbook. I'm looking to capture those kinds of things. I may decide at some point to turn some of these sketches in my sketchbook into bigger paintings. Sometimes I do these sketches deliberately because I'm planning on doing a larger painting. And this is kind of practice to see what it is that I like, what it is that I want to do. But other times it's just practice at making marks. And after last week's debacle trying to do a loose painting, I've been sitting around doing a lot more paintings in my sketchbook that have a lot more looseness to them so that I can remind myself that, yes, this is my kind of looseness. And if you didn't see last week's Substack post and you want to know, what do I mean when I talk about being loose? There are a couple of my larger paintings that I put in that post, and I'll put a link to it in today's post so you can go see it if you want. But I included some larger paintings that I consider to be loose, but it's my kind of loose, as opposed to, me trying to wear someone else's sweater like I did last week. So here's where I'm emphasizing the light even more by making the foreground even darker, bringing that shadow really in so that I can, push everything into the light in that strip toward the center. I added a bit of color into the farm things that are there. I don't know if they're all barrels or whatever. I'm adding brighter color to them than I might otherwise. And then we get to this point when I was taking the tape off, and I don't always do a good job of, smushing my tape down. If you take your fingernail along the edge and you have good tape, then you can usually kind of take care of that. But if you just put a piece of tape over it, and if your colors are not staining, then you can usually just kind of use a baby wipe to smush a little bit of that off. It's a brand clean baby wipe. Don't take color, keep turning it like I'm doing here. Don't take extra color and apply it because then you'll end up with a big bloop. But at least it helps my sketchbook not to have a big bloop in it, even though it's just a painting in my sketchbook. So let me know what you think. Did you learn anything from this? Are you going to try this painting? Because there is a link to the sketch in the doobly-doo. All right, I will see you next week when we're going to do a live stream right here on YouTube. So join me next Saturday.